Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I am joined by my co-host and producer, Holly Deschenes. Today, we are talking about the permission to clear. So this is going to be about clearing resistance in our nervous system. We have these kind of stuck ideas on something, and so that causes tension in the body, and we want to try and move past that. It's about learning to dismantle that resistance, and it's always going to be a perspective shift. So Holly, we do this constantly in our work together, right? So
We
it's
do.
like you come in tense and then you feel a lot more relaxed. And then in that place, your mind opens up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, through the process of like letting go of the tension, coming in with whatever the emotional trigger might be, and then clearing through that is super helpful.
The idea of clearing resistance. So the first part is, so what is resistance? It's going to be our belief systems. It's going to be baggage from the past, which is a common theme we talk about here on a regular basis. It's just these ideas that we feel like we need to protect ourselves from, or it could be a fixation on something. Like I need something to go a certain way, and that could be attachment to, let's say, a plan or an idea. We feel like we've thought it through, and we can only see it happening one way. That can create a lot of tension in the nervous system as well. So basically, all these things are little puzzles for us to solve, where our body is this cue to be like, well, if I'm tense in the body, my mind is generally going to be fixated on analyzing, problem solving, or could be even like justification, excuses. Basically, I'm going to have kind of this like negative frame generally. This is a feedback loop we're always looking at. That's our mind wrestling with things. It's going to send those signals into our nervous system, and that causes a contraction. So, that contraction is the resistance we're talking about. That means we're locked into some sort of fixed mindset. That fixed mindset is going to come from one of those areas we just discussed. Am I trying to protect myself from something? Is there pain around this subject I'm dealing with? Do I have beliefs that don't allow me to progress? That's what a limiting belief is going to be built on, that protection. This is what I've learned that's kept me safe. And so I'm going to keep that in play until I overcome that, or I shift to a new belief. Our beliefs, it literally causes resistance in our body. We build these kind of internal walls. And this work is about dismantling or adjusting the walls that are internal in us. And so our belief systems, they can be very intense to overcome. If we've experienced something a certain way over and over again, we start to have this certainty that it can't be any other way. So my perception is going to be shutting me off from opportunity in that place. I'm not going to be able to see new things coming in because it's going to disprove what I believe. And my beliefs are going to be my rules for life. So it's what I believe is absolutely true for me. The thing about limiting beliefs is they basically shut down our life. That's why we're always trying to expand the mind here. I'm trying to open up your perceptions on how you're seeing situations, because that's what allows us to have access to new results, new opportunities. And you maybe like that questioning process that we're always talking about here, the reflection and thinking a little bit deeper, it opens so many new doors that, it really leads you back to yourself long term. Our feeling sense, this resistance in the body, that's our clue to how we relate to something. So if I'm tense, there's going to be this negative mindset around it. And peak performance, if we're looking strictly at performance, so when I work with an athlete, all I'm trying to ever do is get them to relax. That's when the body works the most efficiently. That's when our mind is open and we can be present with things. In order to get to that relaxed state, I have to disprove or disarm, or I have to create some different perceptions around what I believe so that I can open my mind back up. A tense body and a closed mind go hand in hand. And so the learning process is literally working through the feelings in the body to come to a new understanding. So that's what we do time and time again, is as we shift the mind, the body starts to relax and open up. Well, Holly, just to expand on this a little bit, in our work together, have you noticed this greater sense of how you feel, and maybe feeling more relaxed on a regular basis in situations maybe where you're tense?
Yeah, for sure. Just the examples of it, I think, that are most tangible from this work is there used to be very common pains that would show up for me like regularly that I think were tied to all of this, the emotional tension or the limiting beliefs I had at the time. And just to like full dive off, I used to have pretty significant pain in my hips, which I blamed often on like, oh, I stood on concrete all day, or I walked a lot, or I had on the wrong shoes. And working through some of these sorts of things that you and I have done in this work, like that tension and pain happens far less often. It's not completely gone, it still comes up occasionally, but
Hmm.
much, much less frequently than it did before.
Hmm.
I think there is this overall general, like, even just having that go away brings like a different level of relaxation because it doesn't exist, right? It's just easier
Hmm.
to be in the world without pain.
And how do you connect that to your mindset? Do you feel like your mind's a lot more flexible and able to see the opportunity in every situation? Are there things that when you're hyper fixed on it, you know that you need to shift? I guess like what's your awareness around your mindset relating to your body?
I think that in the mindset place, I think we've done a lot of work through a variety of different triggers that I've had. And I think some of it is those things were tied to like triggers where maybe something triggered the limiting belief, the you're not good enough, or who do you think you are, or whatever it is. And some of those thoughts don't come up for me anymore. Like I don't
Mhm.
have that's not like the same regular reoccurring patterned thought that I had before. So I think it is a generally more open mind. That's too basic. That's not actually that doesn't describe it well enough.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's a thing that now when something comes in, my brain doesn't immediately take over with like all of the bullshit that it previously would come in with, like all of those
Yeah,
limiting beliefs or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, kind of self-defeating thoughts about yourself, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
where it's like very fixed thinking of like this is the way it is. And so
Right.
one of my goals with this work is to expand the mind to see that everything is really it's flexible. You know, we can move with it, we can adapt, we can shift, we can upgrade our mindset too. Meaning upgrade, I would say, is we're thinking pretty positively, mostly positively, or at least neutral. Is like I can approach situations where I don't feel like I need to protect myself as much. You know, those are some of the goals we're looking for. Is like if I'm stuck on something, this is an opportunity for me to shift my mind in a way that feels better because that's this feedback loop we're talking about. Is the resistance is a signal that I'm focused on the problem in a way that doesn't give me a solution or that I don't know the solution to, which is going to mean that my past hasn't brought me the solution. Okay, so this is going to be I have a repetitive pattern or a repetitive problem that keeps coming up that I don't know how to solve. That's where we go outside ourselves. And going outside of ourselves could even mean like sitting with the discomfort and trying to shift how I feel through breath work so that I can start to see the different aspects of the situation so that I'm not focused on it in the same way. So the perspective piece, that's like the key to everything in this work is like how I see something determines my experience. If I'm fixated on something in a way that doesn't feel good, that means I have beliefs or a story that's feeding the negative outlook on that situation. We see this commonly. Two people can look at the same exact thing and they're going to have different interpretations, right? And so that's
Right.
going to be based on their personal history. And we can always make adjustments to this stuff. Kind of the highest leverage pieces are always going to be, well, oh, if I'm fixated on this, like something from my past has caused me to protect myself from it, or I might not be familiar with it. But it's like if I go back and I change how I relate to it in my past, okay, now I'm dismantling these old limiting belief systems. So that's what the word, you know, when we talk about healing work, we're just trying to shift our perspective on how we're seeing the past in a way that gives us a new path forward. Okay, so I'm taking the negative energy out of something by seeing it differently. this work's a little intangible because this stuff's like internal. We're experiencing it, but it's hard to put our finger on it. That's one of the challenges with examples with this work is everybody experiences things a little bit differently. But so when we talk about clearing resistance, it's where am I stuck? Where am I fixated? Where have I stopped questioning things in my life? Because that's all stagnated energy. And my thing is like, if it doesn't feel good, if it's not working, then it's probably causing problems and it's causing us to limit our life. And we have the option to make an adjustment that gives us a new path forward, a new outlook. That's commonly what we call a growth mindset is I'm trying to see the opportunity in every situation. I'm not seeing it as fixed. And painful things are that way. It's tough to look at because they generally bring intense sensations. There could be guilt and shame and all sorts of heavy emotions wrapped up in that. And that's where the resistance comes from. It's like I made a judgment about a situation or idea, and I kept thinking it over and over again until I built a belief around it. And this belief is designed to keep me safe. It's a protection mechanism. That's when I put my guard up. I'm protecting myself. So if I'm guarded, that means I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe because something happened to me and I left it in the negative place.
Sure.
So that means I haven't readdressed that situation. Because many of these things, it's in childhood, there's the one version where maybe we couldn't do anything about it. Maybe it was just the circumstance we were dealt. But then as an adult, a lot of times these things aren't true anymore, but our system still believes they are. It creates that tension, that resistance, these negative thoughts, these shutting down my life, and it prevents us from new opportunities. It prevents us from our next levels. So, super important work. Our biggest cue is this nervous system response of if I feel resistance around something, that means I'm either trying to understand it, meaning it's a new input and I don't quite understand how to interpret it, or it's something stuck from my past. One, I can become familiar with something. This is why we have this fear of the unknown. Well, so if I have that fear going on, then I just try to familiarize myself with the subject. I just try to get to know it a little bit better. And what you'll notice is the tension in your body will start to dissipate the more you understand something. The other option is I've built this idea around something painful in my past and I need to protect myself from it. And so that's also going to create resistance. Another area where we're going to find resistance is if I've built my identity around something. So this is resistance to change. So let's say, so an athlete this is who I am, is I'm a baseball player, I'm a triathlete, whatever it is, right? If I put all my eggs in that basket and that's like who I believe I am, and I don't know who I am outside of that, basically I have resistance to seeing outside that window, right? I don't know who I am without it. So I might as well just keep this going as long as possible. We can hit this burnout stage because we're hanging on to something too long. We see this with relationship too. Maybe we stay in a relationship too long. I don't know who I am without this. If we've been in it a number of years, it's like, okay, I'm going to cling to this. And so there's a resistance there I'd rather cling to what's known rather than go into the unknown. When we're clinging to the known, it's this idea that it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. At least I know what it is. And then also, my past is better than my future. So if I'm clinging to something, I don't trust that something better is coming. So that could be a resistance. So this resistance to change, it's got a lot of different dynamics to it. It's like, was I hurt? Am I comfortable? Do I not know what's next? Am I afraid of being in that limbo of discovery? There's so many different offshoots, but the key is as we work through the resistance, that's where we find clarity. Our body's sending these signals and it's communicating with us that something's unresolved. We don't have enough information, that we don't trust what's outside of ourselves. The truth is, if we stay in that place, we never may move forward. It's the internal nudge to be like, well, yeah, I kind of know what this all brings. Maybe I want some adventure in my life. There has to be some sort of desire that pulls us out of things. The longer we're in this resistance, the more numb we become to it. So it just becomes our normal default state. So when we talk about settling, it's just like, well, the discomfort was probably pretty loud in the beginning, but the longer I'm in something, I just kind of accept it as my reality and I don't really change. So with all these things, we want to feel because the feeling is how we get in tune with our next steps. It's this constant feedback loop. But if I'm muting that just to stay comfortable, then I might stick in the same situations forever and not really be living my life. I'm going to be functioning in the autopilot. I'm going to be just being in my routines, doing the normal thing. So this is just kind of that call to be like, well, the discomfort is always our growth. The discomfort's always that call to a bigger life, and that calls how we build our brighter future. That's why we want to engage with a variety of things to get our mind expanded and open, because that's what like starts to give us some sort of purpose for pulling out of the tension that we're constantly in. So the constant tension, it could be like survival needs. It could be the safety security of our current situation of like, well, yeah, this is how I pay my bills. This is how I do this. We set up our whole system. That's not a stress-free state though, because if we're not expanding, we're actually living in the tension all day, every day, and we're just kind of numb to it. And so when you see people that are just not very happy, but yeah, maybe just you kind of feel like they're sleepwalking through life. It's
Sure.
just like not actively engaged, but because that tension's just become a default, and our sensitivity to it is dialed down so much that we stop questioning, which I would argue is probably a worse place to be than like a depression, because at least in a depression, we're feeling so much that we're like, I want to get out of this. I want to do something different. But when we're kind of in this lull, it's a dangerous place to be because we can stay there kind of forevermore until
Yeah.
something comes in and shakes us up.
Right. I think it's Adam Grant who refers to that feeling as languishing.
Languishing, that's a good word.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, so I was thinking about as you were talking through and the limiting beliefs piece, and something that stuck with me from a long time ago that someone said to me once having to do with limiting beliefs was, she asked, "When did you decide that?"
Mhm.
And her idea was to reframe that limiting belief from a belief into a decision, because it's easier to change a decision than it is to change a belief. But I'm curious from you, and in this work, when we believe something, there is like a different weight to that. And there is a little more work to be done to get out of it, I guess. I'm not
Mhm.
sure exactly where I'm going with this question, but I just think it would be interesting to expand a little bit more on how how we can move this stuff, because it can feel so painful to let go of something that you held true as a belief.
I mean, we're talking about the realm of attachment here. If I'm attached to something, that means that my relationship with it is pretty fixed. I'm not examining it. Any shift in that, it is a detachment. That means that I've basically channeled all these emotions, my identity, how I relate to this, and that's all like pretty set. So non-attachment is I can just be present and I can observe things. Not everything we're like fully attached to. Okay. But the things that basically that keep us safe, that feed our survival needs, those are generally the things we're the most attached to. Because if I remove that thing, I don't know who I am without it. And
Sure.
and that can be a very scary thing, right? Especially if it's been a consistent thing my whole life. So this attachment, it's like, even if it's painful, it's still a bit of a safety net. It gives me something to cling to. That's a lot of times what the resistance is like we're not like moving forward because we won't let go of the thing that's causing us the pain or sabotaging us.
So I'm trying to think of a tangible example, and maybe we can use this one. If you hate it, I'll cut it out. So a limiting belief I would say that I held, and that maybe still pops up. Not maybe, definitely still pops up from time to time, is there's a fear associated with really being seen, really putting yourself out there,
Hmm.
which is crazy as we're recording this thing for YouTube, right? But there's still a fear in really showing up and being fully seen. And this goes back to childhood, the house I grew up in, the way I was raised. There was very actual, real safety in not being seen. So there continues to be like the limiting belief around that. So I'm just wondering, let's talk through a real life example like that and what it would be to clear that, which I know you and I work on this stuff pretty regularly, but just to give like a real life example that I'm sure affects more than just me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that those safety situations, once again, that's those primary needs we have. Is I need to be safe. I need food. I need basically all our survival instincts are wrapped into that stuff. Like, because when we're dealing with our caregivers, those are quite literally the people that meet all of our basic needs too. And so it's like I learned to, in order to survive in this type of environment, I have to be a certain way, because if not, there's some real consequences to that. So that's a common one, is like not wanting to be seen or in the spotlight, is because it's much safer to be in the background. And so when I go to take steps into the spotlight, that is going to carry attention to it, because my nervous system's trying to keep me safe. It's trying to show me that, hey, like, are you sure about this? Like, because like last I checked, this wasn't a good thing. And
Right.
it's so that's what the resistance is. We're kind it's an internal conflict. All these things are internal conflicts. And the thing with our mind is it's wherever we left something last. So this is why I'm not a big fan of, oh, just keep pushing forward, just keep moving forward. Because if there's some painful events, and I just move forward, okay, I've left all those complex emotions in that same place. Okay. And so every time, I can keep it there for a while, then my nervous system's going to try and build walls around it to basically to numb it out or to avoid it. But there's a lot of like built up negative energy there, and that's going to cause some problems. So with these things, it's like wherever I left it last, well, if I'm going to take steps and I have a ton of anxiety around something, or, dip in even into fear, okay, that's telling me that I've left that in an extreme negative place. They're like this is going against my safety. Okay. So I can't take the step without shutting down or being paralyzed by fear. That means like there's some healing work to do. Like I have to create safety now. And the way I do that is I feel where that's stored in my body, and I start to take a look at it. And a lot of times it helps to have a guide, especially through our painful situations. We need somebody to like witness us in a safe place. So these emotions get stored in basically chaos sometimes. Let's say there's abuse and all sorts of things going on in the house that are very intense. Like that's where we're storing all the emotions in that type of state. If I don't go back and readdress that stuff, it's left in that place, and now it's basically spilling over into all the other areas of my life. What we do is we just take a look at it, and we're like, as an adult, when we're in a safe place now, because that might not have been the case. So we're looking back at it from the realization that I'm safe now, and we're revisiting it and bringing that calm centeredness to the situation. And the healing work is we're trying to comfort that version of ourselves that didn't have safety. This is a path to like really rebuild this trust with ourselves, trust that the world is safe. Because if that's all I knew, I'm going to believe like, yeah, the world's a dark place and that it's dangerous and that I have to hide and it's not safe to be seen. That's going to prevent me from taking the steps I need to be successful, right? Maybe going after a job or opportunity where I might be a center stage. I might be managing other people. I might be leading, right? So all those things are going to bump up against each other. We notice that. It's like your nervous system is going to tell you when you're in that. Let's say I go to lead and I'm in the spotlight and I still have these fears that are in play from my childhood. That is going to come up as anxiety. That is going to be like racing thoughts. My mind might actually go blank. It might dissociate. My nervous system's trying to communicate to me that this isn't okay. So performance is going to be, I need to heal that so that I can be calm when I need to be, because this isn't a life or death situation anymore. This is what I need in order to further and grow. it's through those distinctions of like your body's always trying to tell you what you're holding on to. And that's really what this work is. You can go ahead and like try and push forward everything. But, if you've numbed out a lot, if you're not aware of all the different dynamics going on within you, that it's affecting your life in a bunch of different ways that you're probably not conscious with, but they're going to build up over time and everything's going to kind of blow up. Yeah, you're going to hit
Right.
exhaustion, you're going to have health scares, things like that, because basically it's this stuck energy that's stuck in a state of stress. So chronic stress, it's what leads to every major illness, every major disease is this idea that the body's in this constant state of stress. So if I haven't resolved an emotion, basically I have this subtle stress going on all day, every day in the background. Just because it's not conscious in my mind, it doesn't mean it's not going on. It's going to show up as aches and pains in the body. It's going to show up as not being able to sleep well. It's going to show up as like being very defensive or having a very negative mindset, very pessimistic. So those are the clues that, hey, there's something that needs our attention here. And that's why it's important to have some goals, some dreams, ambitions, because a lot of times that's what forces us to look at the stuff that's limiting us. As I take the steps, my body is going to is basically battling against me. It's wanting to shut down. So I need something with enough passion or energy behind it that I'm willing to walk that path, because when it comes up, it's very intense. That's where we have to go back and we have to face it. We have to face our fears in order to grow even further. Because if we're not on that path, basically we just manage our fears and we just keep them in the same place all the time. And long term, that usually means taking a bunch of meds and to numb out and that kind of stuff, right? You can take a pill to silence these things, but it doesn't mean they're not there still. Okay. And over
Right.
time, they continue to build and grow. So our nervous system is always communicating through this idea of tension. So tension is a contraction of the nervous system. That's a cue that, hey, there's a stress here. And if we go into the tension, we can learn about what we're holding on to. And so that's things. It's like we do these things in a safe place, because if the tension's there and it's not the appropriate environment, let's say I'm at work or whatever, yeah, I probably have to push through. It's not going to be optimal performance. If I have a big fear response going on and I'm having to do my job, like I'm probably not doing the best I can be. So that's the kind of the need is when we're out of those situations, we take that time and space to take a look at these things because they're there whether we like them or not. That tension, that stress, as it builds, we get more reactive, we get more defensive, we get more impulsive. We could even look at addiction, things like that. Those are all these attempts to self-soothe, and that's to dissipate the tension in the body. So if we just get curious about what we hold, if we just take a look at those things, not only does it have the health benefits and the mindset benefits, but then it also it allows you to move forward and conquer things you couldn't imagine. You can take steps that used to terrify you before, but now you start to build confidence in that direction where I need to do this in order to become who I want to become. So I'm going to do it. If those signals from the body are intense and super loud, that can really hurt our chances, our performance. It can shut the door on opportunities for us. So for me, there's no situation where it's not a benefit to try and come to peace with some of this stuff, right?
Right.
Because it really does affect so many areas. But then once again, it's like a lot of these painful things that have happened, that's also what creates the void in our life. If I'm always having to chase things outside me, if I'm chasing success, but I feel miserable inside, it's like I'm not acting from a clean place there. Yeah, I'm going to be doing things that are probably shady. I'm going to be, not respecting other people or manipulating or even if I do achieve the thing, like I'm still going to feel empty inside. You can't
Yeah.
like run from that stuff. The resistance, it's these beliefs about ourselves. If I'm carrying a lot of shame, if I have a lot of pain from my past, that's going to show up as a lot of negative beliefs about ourselves. So you'll see this commonly with men where they basically like attack or shame themselves into trying to be successful. It's like they actively like talk shit to themselves. It's so this shaming, that's their like, but that's like built on all these terrible beliefs about themselves. So it's like, oh, if I get this thing, then that'll make everything perfect. Well, no, you got all the shame locked in your body and that's not going anywhere. Okay. So all these things, it's like we can kick the can down the road. But yeah, if I want to form this healthy relationship with other people, if I want to be seen and respected and all those things, like it is this healing these aspects where I had to shut myself down in order to be safe. We create the safety first. That's what, being an adult is. You can start to build your own life. And generally, a lot of those things come from, if you're conscious about it, a lot of those things are going to be like, well, yeah, I don't want the experience I had in childhood, so I'm going to build something different.
Right.
But even when we create that space, the things that happen are still inside of us. So that's going to come out in different ways. If I have a lot of, if in those instances, I might become a bit of a control freak or something like that. If I've like built this sanctuary, now it's like I'm going to like wall my life off and I'm basically going to create this environment that I have a ton of control over in order to not feel those things. It's still the avoidance of the feeling. My thing is let's build it, but then when it's in that safe place, let's unpack it so that we can release it from our nervous system and we can expand the mind again and open up to new possibilities rather than shrinking our life down.
So we just used sort of a real life example for me, but maybe someone else has something else they're working through, right? You mentioned the needing to be in control of something, right? Is something that comes up if you're not working through all this stuff. So maybe we can just expand on that a little bit, right? Like an example of what that might look like.
Well, you see this commonly with like a business owner or, somebody that's in a leadership position. Generally, as you lead, as you start to lead people, there's these resistances to surrendering control, or trusting other people to do things. That is going to be based on this, like, well, did I learn I had to do everything by myself? Right. That could be a possible option. It could be like I trusted somebody and they did a bad job or they betrayed me. Right. It could be I trusted somebody with something and somebody got hurt. Like that could be an extreme pain that we have. When I surrender control, like what has happened to me? That's probably a pretty useful exercise for most people is because when those things happen, when we trust or we surrender and then there's a negative outcome, generally there's this blaming of ourselves. And then there's this like inability to trust other people. Another common one would be in a relationship. Let's say you got cheated on, right?
Sure.
It's like, oh, I trusted this person and then they squashed my heart, right? So it's like all these
Yes.
all these different things of, well, the truth is like if you want to really live, you have to interact with other people, generally on a regular basis. And everybody's imperfect. We all have our flaws. And so, if we view all those pains that have happened to us as learning experiences, because it's not as simple. Like, let's say the example of getting cheated on. Well, is that were we seeing that situation accurately? Was that person showing a lot of signs? Were they really invested in the relationship or were they off somewhere else? Right. It's kind of, there's probably things that we can see going on ahead of time that maybe we weren't in tune with that led up to the event. We learn to trust when we become more conscious. And we also learn to trust when we heal ourselves in terms of like, well, yeah, maybe I've given my power away in different situations where I gave up my self-worth to other people instead of building it on my own. It's this ultimately we want to build this framework where I can be in this place of surrender and I'm also in this place of acceptance that, mistakes are going to happen. Things might not go the way I want them to, but those are always opportunities to learn and grow from as well. That's the growth mindset is this the reality is there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that didn't go as planned. There's going to be letdowns. There's going to be disappointments. But if we use all those things as opportunities to learn from, if I go into that and rework it and be like, oh, how can I prevent this from happening next time? How can I forgive this person? How can I let these things go? That's ultimately what we're talking about when we're talking about clearing resistance is how do I let go of the baggage so that it's out of my system? That is going to be me understanding what happened at a deeper level and me preparing for things ahead of time, putting in consistent work It's also going to be me gaining knowledge and skills and abilities so that I can do things better in the future. There's a lot of things that come into view here where the things that are painful to us are actually, that's part of the path. It's a refinement process where it's actually nudging us to move along further rather than get weighed down and stop. Generally, when we experience a setback or repeated setbacks, that shuts us down. When we can really, if we're using that stuff to work through, we actually get stronger every time. Surrendering control is just this realization that I don't know everything and that I can't plan everything either. Life's going to happen, and I have to trust myself to be able to adapt no matter what happens. So it's this, I'm building my internal circuitry to be okay no matter what. So that's the key here is if I feel like I need everything to be a certain way, that means I ultimately don't trust myself. I don't
Sure.
trust my judgment. I don't trust other people. But if I'm not trusting other people, it's because I think they're going to hurt me somehow. But I believe that if I do get hurt, that's going to expose something within me where I can work to get stronger and better from it. It's all the lens you're seeing something through. Do I have a path forward with this, or is this what's going to destroy me? If one betrayal or a disappointing event happens, is that gonna tank you, or is that do we kind of take the hit and keep moving forward in terms of like, yeah, I'm just going to use this to continue to build from, because things are going to happen unexpected all the time, and I can't really plan for any of that. Ultimately, it comes back internally, meaning like I have to trust myself that I can handle whatever's going on. And if I don't, that's where I need support. That's where I may need to deepen my learning so that I can create this path forward over time. Everything, it's like we extend the timelines. Hey, like, yeah, I'm really struggling with these things through these things. Like we go deeper into it and understand why that's happening. That in that place, as I release the resistance, now I'm also surrendering control too. Now I'm trusting the process rather than trying to control every part of the process.
Yeah. As you were talking through that, what popped in my head, and this, I'm sure this is not the example that you necessarily would mean for me to pull out of thin air. But as you were talking through that, I was thinking about David Goggins' first book, which was called Can't Hurt Me, right? So it's that idea that you build such trust in yourself and your abilities that it doesn't matter what anybody else does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a lofty thing to shoot for. He's a very extreme mindset,
Yeah.
but we take these principles. It's just like, well, no matter what happens, you have two options. It's either I can get buried by this, or I can meet the challenge and work through it. And then
Yeah.
long term, that makes me better. So we get to decide that. And sometimes things need to fall apart because once again, maybe we're hanging on to something too long and we needed to let it go to begin with. So it's not, you don't like rebuild everything. It's
Right.
it's always just kind of being present with stuff to be like, well, yeah, that probably needed to happen for some reason or another. And so our job is to try and understand why that is. Like, is this a blind spot that I need to work through and get better from? Or is this something I've been holding on to that no longer serves me anymore? There's so much nuance to this work. And that's why it's paying attention to what you feel every step of the way. That's our number one guide, is because that's how you're relating to whatever's going on in your life. Is you're going to be feeling tension or you're going to be feeling at peace. If you're feeling tension, there's going to be something your mind's engaged with that's stressing you out on one level or another. And that could mean I'm hanging on to this life that needs to fall apart so that I can shift into something new. That's an
Right.
option. It's it's
Yeah.
it's our judgment of those situations where we automatically think there needs to be destruction before we rebuild. There are two sides of the coin, right? And so it's seeing all this stuff as perfect. Negative emotions, we need those to feel positive emotions. If we're stuck in the negative, that's a different question. We don't stay in the negative. There are cycles. We go back and forth, and that's what the learning process is. If I'm stuck in this constant state of tension, there's things in my life that aren't getting resolved, and that's going to be building up over time. It's just going to be creating problems every step of the way. All these things, it's like the tension is our teacher. And as we clear the resistance, it doesn't mean we're relaxed forevermore now. It means I feel good and now I have some steps forward. My mind expanded. I'm going to move towards that. And now I'm going to get new things that are going to put tension on me. And so I work through those. And As that starts to lighten, now I'm upgrading again. It's this constant back and forth. The two sides are expansion and contraction, just like, destruction and building, it's in creation. Everything's duality. We're allowing for all of it. The problems happen when we're polarized too long. If I just stay in one mode forever, then I'm missing out on the other aspect of it.
So I was listening to something earlier this week. So essentially what you just described is the idea of and. Everything is and. It's this and that rather than or that. So as you were talking through that, it made me think about like that I had listened to, right, about this. Everything is and how do we get to that place of accepting that everything is and? But also, I think it's really important because in the work I do day to day, in the work I do with you, it's so easy to believe that you're going to arrive at a destination.
Well,
At some point, this desire to believe that it will like be fully healed or it will be fully whatever and it will not feel like this again. And yet the feelings still come back.
it's just that realization everything's an ongoing process, and it's every time we expand, there is going to be a contraction. It's this back and forth, but that's that place. We have new desires, we have new things born. That's just like, oh, I'm going to go shoot for this now. The thing is, like, when we commit to the contraction and stay in that place for the rest of our lives, that's not really living, but it's not meeting the expansion piece. Because every time I expand, there is going to be some learnings that come from that. That's going to be uncomfortable temporarily. We accept both sides of it, and we know that it's part of the equation. And if something's just negative for me, that means I've fixated on it too long, and I've built stories around it, and I tell myself those stories every day. And so that's what I'm experiencing. That's how I get stuck in a room. But if I know that, oh, the negative thing happened, but this is supposed to show me something that's actually going to lead to a positive, now we get that and going, right? They're cycles. It's back and forth. And that's how we grow. We grow through the tension. Anything you've ever learned, it's because it was uncomfortable at one point. You're just like, okay, I need to dig in and learn this. And that confidence is when you start to be relaxed about it. Confidence is I've gone the depths here and I believe in myself and I'm confident here and I trust it. I trust myself in relationship to this. So I can be relaxed because I can handle whatever comes my way in relationship to this. The process is the same no matter what we're doing. You're working through the tension in order to grow. If you give into the tension and build your life around the tension, now that's when we're miserable, right? Because we've committed our identity to a negative way of being when there's actually a positive that can come from that.
So, yeah, this has been like a good conversation today, Brandon. And I think we've given a couple examples where somebody might see the benefit of doing this work with you as a guide. So before we jump into like where people can reach you and all of that, do you have any sort of final thoughts on the moving through and being able to, clear the tension?
It's mostly what we've been kind of hitting on at the end here, where it is just part of life and it's an acceptance of it and it's never done. And it's kind of this willingness to feel it and work through it. That's how we build a healthier relationship with anything is we have to be with the uncomfortable things because that leads to new conclusions, new ideas being born, a new path forward. If we're not stepping up to that, if we're just trying to stuff it to the side, if we're just trying to avoid it, that actually long term, it leads to compounding negative results, but it also in that avoidance, it is creating these blind spots that we're not aware of as well. You kind of always have to face things. The thing is, like anything you're avoiding, you're going to be feeling tension in relationship to it anyway, right? It's just going to be muted. That tension is just a sign that, there's something that you've got to work out and not everything has to be a right now thing. But, if you're working towards something and you keep running into the same problem, there's probably something you've been avoiding that your mind's fixated on and you haven't gotten over. And so that's your clue that, you might want to go a little bit deeper with it. Because if I don't solve the problem and if I keep seeing it happen over and over again, that's where I get to that victim mindset. Okay. But there's nothing I can do about this. Well, yeah, there's nothing you can do about it if you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Okay.
Right.
But but somebody has the answer, and if you can shift your mind about it, you'll find a different answer. And so that's the thing is it's like for every once two sides of the coin again, for every problem there is a solution, right? Like that's these are universal truths. We can either just stay fixated on the problem, or we can acknowledge the problem and we can put our attention towards the solution. That's that growth process is how do I make this better? How do I improve it? How do I feel better? Well, we feel better by unpacking the resistance. All this stuff benefits everything across the board. Stress is really the killer. So
Yeah.
if we handle our stresses, it benefits everything in our life. We can be more present and connected with the people around us as well because our mind isn't playing all these tapes from the past all the time.
All right, cool. So I will make sure that everything you're about to say ends up in the show notes. But what's your preferred way to have people reach out to you to connect on? I mean, you got a few different projects going on, things coming up. So maybe talk about what they are and then where people can find information on those things.
Yeah. So if you'd like to go deeper, you can visit my booking site. It's brandonfelk.com. On there, you can schedule a 30-minute strategy session, and I'll just ask a little bit about what you've got going on and I'll share how I can help. This podcast outlined very well. Like we just continuously work through the stresses and tensions in your life and bring them to a better place. So that's how we level up is you have to keep working the puzzle. Along with that, I have the Lightning Lab, which is my group coaching. We're moving on to month 3 here. So I'll be putting some new, so that we're wrapping up this portion of Lightning Lab. There'll be a new one starting in June. So look for the details on that. You can also register there at brandonfelk.com. And then follow me at Brandon Thielk on Instagram. I post there pretty regularly.
Yeah. And of course, there's, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're already there. But if you happen to be listening to this, there's also a YouTube channel as well. So links for all that will be in the show notes.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
All right. Talk to you later, Brandon.